Welcome back to the SaaS Playbook, the podcast where we unpack real stories behind founders, operators, and leaders building in technology. Today's episode is brought to you by Hera Digital, helping founders build predictable sales engines in smarter revenue systems. Just comment system below and one of my team will reach out. Today, I'm joined by Rafi, the COO of Rad Software, a company focused on building software infrastructure and tools specifically for the gaming industry. Rafi, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jenny. Happy to be here.
So before stepping in, let's go back a couple of steps here, but before stepping into the role of CEO / co-founder / I do everything for Rad Software, what experiences shaped the way you think about building and scaling technology companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. My father was a small business owner. My father owned convenience stores, and so I was born into an entrepreneurial setting, and I took that with me all the way. I was maybe one of the lucky, maybe one of the unlucky people to graduate and go to university during COVID. So the first half of my undergrad career was in person, and the second half was online. And what that enabled me to do was get going and start working in the startup space and launch my first project my third year of university. So that's something that I feel very fortunate about. I think it's one of the best things I've done as far as making a good situation out of a bad situation. And I never really got out of it. I spent time in startups from that point on, except for a 2-year break where I was doing corporate consulting. And because of that, I was able to see how very, very small teams operate, 2 teams operate, all the way up to 10,000 person firms that we help service on the client side. So that's been very, very helpful and very impactful for me when I think about how we want to scale a business, because I've been fortunate enough to see companies at all sizes and scales in the short time I've been working.
It certainly gives you a bit of a backbone as well, I feel, experiencing both ends of the spectrum, because when you're in a situation when you only feel enterprise level, you don't really understand the pain of a small business, right? So I think that gives you a very good thermometer of, okay, what does the business need at what point? And each scalable point has different sets of problems, right? As you would know. So when we look at the gaming industry, right, which is something we spoke about initially, where it's a really untouched sort of niche, right? But it also moves extremely fast, especially with software and technology and innovation now, both from a technology and a player expectation standpoint. What do you think outsiders misunderstand about how gaming companies actually build and scale software?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that the thing that a lot of people don't understand with gaming is that it is you are whale hunting. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of players who come daily, and on our platform, it's completely free to play. So you're getting free coins and the ability to play all of our games completely free on a daily basis. And those customers are great, and we love having them come on, and we love having them play with us. But then we have other customers who are spending 5 figures plus on a monthly basis. And it's very interesting. In the gaming sphere, maybe 90% of your revenue is coming from 10% of your players. So it's all about servicing everybody, of course, but making sure to pay special attention to those big players.
That 10%, that's kind of wild, right? Because it's from a security and sort of welfare perspective, you do really have to be careful with how you approach it, right? Because it's obviously more to the gambling side. So when you do operate, you have to be super cautious. And when it comes to gaming, and then obviously with taking payment from customers, how did you approach that in a way that it still felt safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Trust is very, very important in this space. We're working with people's credit and debit cards. What we have is a completely cashless slot machine. You essentially walk up to it, you scan the QR code on the back of the machine. If you don't have an account, you make one. You go through a quick KYC to verify your identity. I already have an account, so I'm logged in, and now I can play any number of these games. We've got about 2,500 games on the platform. We put 12 on the best on any given one of our machines, and then we look at data constantly to optimize which games you're on here. This is one of our most popular slots that I'm going to pull up quickly here. But we're constantly looking at the data, and we're constantly trying to understand what players want to play, and that builds a lot of trust. We also uniquely put these machines inside of bars and restaurants in the United States. We're in about a dozen states today. And what our customers really enjoy about it, our bar partners, our location partners, is the transparency. The traditional machine that you see inside of a bar is cash-based, and the bars themselves don't service it. There's actually a third party that's typically placing these machines inside of these bars, inside of these restaurants, and they're coming on a weekly basis to collect the cash, count it, and then disperse it to the bar, where there's not a lot of transparency. You don't really know how much is in that machine until the guy with the key walks in and opens it up and then takes it back to their count room and counts it and distributes the funds. So we try to be overly transparent. Every single one of our locations, everybody we work with gets a live dashboard that they can access at any time. So when we do payouts on a monthly basis, they can expect to receive exactly what they're seeing on their live dashboard.
That's a really intelligent way of approaching a very outdated industry. So I used to work in banking, and they still do have that same process where they have to manually send someone in, collect the cash. Everything's locked, and there's our security measures. But when you look at things like that on a smaller scale, I mean, who's really monitoring it, really, right? There's going to be a number on the screen to reconcile it against, but there's going to be jams. There's going to be more of a logistical issue. And then there's also additional overhead costs that you need to factor in being sort of the bar owner, right? So you have to factor in the cost of the person coming to count the money, distribute it, so forth and so forth. So it's almost bypassing a lot of that and bringing technology into an industry where it just lacked for so long. So it's a really clever way of approaching it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other thing that we do that's so powerful for our bars is that, once I'm done playing on this machine here, I've enjoyed myself, I've had a couple drinks, and now I want to go home. I can actually log out of this machine and keep playing all those games and 2,500 more on my phone at home. Because I signed up at this bar, my revenue is going to that bar, whether I'm playing on the machine or I'm playing on my phone at home. So we're giving bars access to that player during hours they traditionally never would have had access to.
And I think you mentioned as well previously that if that person, because people are going to bar hop, right, to some degree, they're probably
Correct.
going to play in between the bars while they're waiting for Ubers to get to the next destination. So, from my understanding, the bar that they originally sign in is how the tracking is attributed back to that original bar, right?
That's correct. Now, if a player goes to a different bar with machines, they can log into those machines. That retail session will go to the bar that they're currently sitting in. But when they go home and play on their phone, it is the first bar that they signed up at that will get attributed to their digital revenue.
And I think that's a way of revenue sharing, but in a very fair way, because if the machine's there in their real estate, then obviously they're going to want to see their revenue, right? So that makes total sense. And it's very innovative. I really like that. From a operational perspective, what are the biggest challenges gaming studios face today when it comes to infrastructure, development cycles, or even just something as simple as hardware?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, obviously we are a software company and we own all of our software front to back. What we don't own is our hardware. We work with manufacturers to not only develop the screens, but also develop the stands that they sit on. And that proves to be a challenge. What we face there are just very traditional supply chain challenges that you see in a lot of different businesses. We have tariffs to think about. We have shipping timelines to think about. We have customers who really want the product and it just can't get there as soon as we want them to. So navigating those very traditional things, a lot of relationship management are things that we face with every day. But we do our best to keep everybody happy.
Yeah, from a standpoint of when you go from software to hardware, it has
Yes.
a very unique challenges, but it's almost like a commerce level challenge because when you're crossing borders, especially with tariffs in play, you've got to now factor that in, make sure that the devices are going to be sent on time and supplying that demand. It's a whole different ball game, right? And you're like, okay, is this now then worth what we originally thought, right? Because I think when you start off in software, it's a different ball game as well.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And our team, we have a ton of experience in software development. That's our bread and butter. That's in our DNA. Hardware development is not. So we had to figure that out very, very quickly.
It's kind of one of those sink or swim situations and you're forced to learn. And there's nothing more high pressure than I need that device now and you need to figure it out right now. In my past experiences with sort of commerce is by the time the, the product is in construction or manufacturing, there's very little control you have, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
So you have to have a really great relationship with your manufacturer. Otherwise, it can go pear-shaped very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And with everything that we do, whether it's hardware or software, we always take an iterative approach. We constantly are iterating. We're constantly saying, how can we do this better than we did last time? That process is actually very quick on software. We can deploy software very quickly and we can iterate on it very quickly and we can get that user feedback very quickly. On hardware, all of that takes a longer amount of time. So we're constantly navigating that.
Yeah, no doubt. That's the good thing about having sort of software to back it. and sort of native software because you can learn pretty quickly and have that feedback, as you mentioned before. For someone who's hearing about Rad software for the very first time, how would you describe the core problem you're solving for gaming companies and bars?
We are solving the management of cash, which is a very painful and laborious process. If you look at, we spend a lot of time working with traditional route operators. These are the guys that are placing traditional cash-based slot machines inside of bars. And all of their problems trickle down to one thing, and that was cash management. If you have 100 locations, you probably have 3 to 5 slot machines in each one of those locations. And therefore, you might have approximately $8 to $10 million USD on the streets at any given moment. You have a large team that's going to all of these bars, opening up the machine and counting it. You have to pay them enough so they don't steal from you. So there's a big trust factor that happens when you're managing a ton of cash. And there's always the issue of transparency. The bars that work with those traditional route operators really don't have a good idea if they're getting their fair cut when they receive their stack of cash at the end of the month, because there is no live tracking. It's completely dependent on someone opening up that safe on the bottom of a slot machine, emptying out the cash, counting it, and then putting it in an envelope for you. So that's really the problem that we're solving. And the bars that work with us love it, right? They're able to know exactly how much they're making at a moment's notice. They know exactly what that stack of cash, and in our case, it's not cash, but exactly what their earnings will be for that time period. And they love that players can go home and play on their phone. The other problem that we're solving is the content issue that exists with a static slot machine. A lot of people don't know this, but the majority of slot machines today are they're not dynamic in any which way, and they are not connected to the internet. And all that means is that whatever games are on that board inside of that slot machine are the games that slot machine can offer. We've got 2,500 games, and we can put any single one of them on this machines at a moment's notice completely remotely. And that's very exciting, and that allows us to meet player demand in a very rapid way.
It's really shortcutting a lot of the processes, really. Is you're not only solving the cash management problem because you're bypassing, but you're also solving the problem of, again, transparency, but also that live loop, right? Because one bar may really favor one game, and then that person will go to a different bar, like, hey, how come it doesn't have it on that? And they're like, hey, Rafi, can you send it over? And it happens immediately, right? So, and that's the beautiful thing about software and how innovative everything is. And I guess, what type of gaming studios or companies outside of bars would you see benefiting most from Rad machines today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think gaming is a very regulated industry. As you said at the beginning of this call, it is moving very fast, but it can only move as fast as regulation allows it. I think just like any other industry, it's going to go cashless. So many industries have gone cashless, and there's a lot of good reasons for things to go cashless, many of which I've already mentioned. From a business perspective, we do see that consumers will spend 50% more on average when they're working with a contactless digital payment. So it's very beneficial from a business standpoint, as well as from an operational standpoint, to reduce cash as much as possible.
Mm. But not only that, if you sort of dial it down, the bar now has a very clear idea of additional revenue for lending out a space, but it's very little output for very potential high upside. And it kind of puts it in a situation where it's a bit of a no-brainer to have it there, especially if they have an outdated machine there.
And we try to make that decision a no-brainer for bars. We do not charge our bars for equipment. If a bar that's in our home state asks us for equipment, they're going to get it completely for free. We're just in it for that back-end revenue, which we split 50-50 with our locations. So we're very confident in our system. We know it works. It's tested, it's tried and true, and we just want to have it as many bars as possible run our machines so they don't have to worry about cash, and they have a completely transparent experience with gaming.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it just brings a new light or a new perspective on gaming. And as Rad continues to grow, where are you personally spending most of your time operationally? Is that more product development, partnerships with studios and bars, scaling infrastructure, or something completely different?
We're in scale mode right now. We're in scale mode. Our goal is to become the largest decentralized casino in the United States, and we'll need about just under 11,000 machines to do that. To date, we've launched in April of 2025. We have just under 500 machines out on the street. So we've got a long way to go, but we've come a long way very, very quickly.
As long as your manufacturer partner can keep up, I think it's not going to be hard to get there, to be honest. And providing sort of the gaming governing body also comes on board, because when you pitch this to them, I don't also see that being a big issue other than accessibility because it's so easy to access, right? So from that standpoint, how do you then communicate this to the governing bodies? How do you mitigate that risk of them spending more than is responsible?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we always have to remember is that we're in the entertainment industry. We want people to feel entertained when playing our games, all of our games. So we have extraordinarily high RTP, which is the return to player across all of our titles, and we're very proud of that. Our games pay out at a much higher rate than, frankly, any single traditional slot machine that you see in a bar in Wisconsin today. And players like that. Our goal is always to have a player sit down on one of our machines and say to themselves, wow, I will never play on a cash-based slot machine in a bar ever again. I will only play on these. So we try to just drive that experience. We try to make sure players are feeling really good and really comfortable by providing really high RTP games constantly.
But it's high quality as well. I think, and that people like pretty things. I'm sorry, but it's true. People like pretty things. And you've really been able to sort of leverage that a fair bit because you can tell by the border, it's super colorful, it's very attracting. So that's sort of a very good way to look at it. But one last question for you, Rafi, before you wrap up. For founders and operators who want to build companies in the gaming ecosystem, which would technically be a competitor to you, what advice would you give them about navigating such a competitive and rapidly evolving industry?
It's a really good question. And it goes back to what we were just talking about, the player experience. The player experience has to be top notch. The end user's experience is the most important thing. And we're constantly doing it. I have team members across every single state that we operate in, constantly watching players play these machines inside of bars. We are always looking for customer feedback. We are always looking for user feedback. We want to know how to make this as seamless and as easy to use as possible because we are taking a very traditional cash-based experience and removing that element of cash. People are very used to taking dollar bills, paper notes, and putting them inside of slot machines. And something that they've never played before might feel a bit scary at first. Now, we incentivize those players by giving them free coins to play with on a daily basis and when they first sign up to get them past that hurdle of signing up. And we constantly are doing that on a daily basis. We're constantly re-engaging them through email and other channels. But I would say focus on that player experience and always, no matter what, make sure you're solving a problem. If you're not solving a problem, you probably don't have a business.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Or you won't have a business for a long time, at least. It won't be
Correct.
sustainable, right?
Correct.
It's funny you said that because a lot of the guests on this podcast alone say the exact same thing. Whether they've been in business for 20 years or they've been in business for 2 years, they always have that sole focus of what does the end customer want? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And how does the experience feel, right? But it's always the end customer because if you're not serving to some degree, you're not really going to be around for a very long time, unfortunately.
That's exactly right. And we're fortunate enough that we have a couple of end customers. We have our players who play our games on the machine and continue playing at home, but our bars, our locations are also our end customers. So we study that experience. We study their operations as well. I'll give you a great example. I've had several bar owners and bartenders tell me with the traditional cash-based slot machine, oftentimes the way a player gets paid out is they get a receipt from the machine and then they take it to the bar to get paid out. And I've had bartenders tell me, Fee, I'll lose $75, $100 in drink orders on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night just to pay out someone's $12 slot machine ticket. So we're constantly trying to find a way to just make it a seamless revenue opportunity for bars across the United States. That's our goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And judging by the growth so far, it's definitely going to be something pretty big. And I'm excited to see what that looks like if from a global standpoint, if that ever comes to fruition. I think it's always wise to focus on one thing at a time first. But would love to see what that looks like. Rafi, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you sharing from an operational perspective on an industry that is one lacking and needs a little bit of love, but also in the same token, running and evolving quickly, probably now with a lot of your help. But if you're listening and wanting to learn more about Rad Software and the work they're doing in the gaming ecosystem, we'll include the relevant links in the show notes below. And as always, if you find value in these kind of conversations, share it with another founder or operator who's building in tech. But in the meantime, keep building meaningfully. Thanks for coming, Rafi.
Thanks for having me, Jenny.